Let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the king of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life.
Hi, my name is James. I'm going to talk about a off-grid solar system. We're going to talk about the inverter, about the charge controller, about the batteries, about the wiring, and about the fuse protection and the solar panels. I'm going to keep it short. Don't want to waste a lot of your time, okay? Okay, I'm going to start at the solar panels because everything, it's a good place to start. The power comes from there, and then it's got to get distributed everywhere else. It's got to be stored on the batteries. It's got to be charged to the batteries. But anyways, these are two 100 watt 12 volt DC solar panels. So it's got a total, I've got them in series. It makes it a 24 volt solar panel. At 200 watts, is not very much. It's not good for powering the whole house. This is more like a vacation home place. And so it's going to keep our batteries charged, and it's fine. But if you really wanted to run more, I'd probably go to 800 watts. Okay, and so it's thing I've done on the back of these solar panels, it's got a positive and it's got a negative coming out. So on this one here has got the positive right here. It's got negative over here. And so all I've done is that I connect negative to the positive of the solar panel next to it. And then I take the positive coming out and I bring that down into my basement as my positive 24 volts. So basically these are connected in series, not in parallel. I'm going to connect positive to negative, and then on the other side I'm going to have the negative. So this would be the negative at the 24 volts, and they both come down on my line and go all the way down there along the wall into the basement area. Now, I'm not a certified electrician. I know about electronics, but everything as far as electrical is not up to code. But I do know how to hook the things up, and I'll tell you how to do that, okay? I do know the wiring here is sun resistant, it's water resistant, it's high voltage, so it's fine this way. It's not like it's going to catch on fire, but if you want to do it up to code, you're going to have to research it some more. Okay, we'll go and look at the charge controller now. Okay, I've got my 24 volt line coming off the solar panels, comes down and along the wall right there, comes through into the vent. Okay, from the vent it comes in, up the wall, around over here, and it goes into my charge controller. And as I told you, I'm not a certified electrician. I know this is safe how I've got it, but if you want it certified, you're probably going to have to in the electrical conduit and stuff. So on this charge controller, it's the C35. It's a 35 amp. It's got 24 volt option or the 12 volt option. This year I've checked other charge controllers. In fact, I even bought one, and it's one of the Chinese brands, and it was nice. It showed me how much voltage is coming in, how much current it's using, but it's not good if you want long life in the battery. If you want something it's going to last, if you don't care about efficiency, and also don't care about life of the battery, because it's a compromise. As you get the Chinese ones, the compromise, it's thing I saw in mine is that the charging, it wasn't linear. It was more of SCR driver type of thing, where it would turn on, it would turn off, it would turn on, it would turn off. And like a lot of time, if the battery, if it wasn't even charged yet, it kept turning off voltage, sort of like a relay on-off kind of thing, and it's just wasting efficiency. If you're spending all that money on solar panels and you want to maximize charge on your battery and maximize power going into your house, you want to get one. It's got linear drivers driving voltage into your battery, which is what this one has. And so I researched it a bit. This is the best one I saw. And you know, the thing I didn't like about the other ones is that you know, it didn't have adjustable float voltage on it. And see, I've got Trojan T-105-RE batteries, and according to the factory, it's really important keeping float voltage and the bulk charge rate correct on that, and it's real easy setting it up in this controller. And let me pull off the cover and I'll show you the inside. Okay, looking at the inside of the charge controller, we have power. It comes in from the solar panels, which is the PV line. Here's the positive, here's negative. Negative on these sides, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you put negative of the solar panel on this side or that side, just as long as you get negative here, positive of the solar panel goes right here. This is the voltage in, and this is the voltage out to the battery. On the voltage right here coming in, you know, it's called a 24 volt solar panel because I got two together, but it's actually measuring about 40 volts. And that there's where the charge controller comes in, is the charge controller controls how much voltage and how much current goes out to the battery. And this one here, you know, is a real good linear system where it like maximizes power onto the battery. On this one here is the bulk setting, and so say if the battery is getting used and it goes low, and then it's going to recharge the battery, and it's going to recharge it to the higher voltage, to the bulk setting. And on that one here is going to be 29.6. It's just real easy setting. It's just a dial, just set it for 29.6, which is one dot away from the max of the 34 volts. I mean 30 volts. On this one right here on the float charge, that means after the battery's been charged, I think it stays on this one for like an hour after it's all charged up, and then it'll just hold it at the float voltage. And that one on the Trojans, they recommend set for 27, and on the bulk is set for the 29.6. On this over here is you know, it's got the manual and the auto for the equalization charge on the batteries. That's like, it's sort of a boost charge. It cleans out the batteries, it cleans out the cells, it sort of equalizes them because it's so many cells. Each cell inside the battery has got 2 volts, and sometimes some of those voltages sort of get off a little bit, and so as you press on the equalize button, it's going to equalize it, and it's set on this one where it'll go 1 volt above bulk voltage. And so if this one's 29.6, that would be 30.6. I've got that tab set in the manual. That means I manually do it instead of this automatically doing it. It's an option over here of charge control or load control. I'm using this as a charge controller. Load controllers where it's going to put these out over here out to the load. I'm not using it that way. I'm not too familiar with it. And also, as I mentioned, I am using this as a 24 volt system. It's real easy. All you do is pull off the clip right here. It's a jumper, and jumper it on the 24 volt slot right there, and that'll give you a 24 volt system. This is a really cool current voltmeter. It shows power and the energy too. I don't really pay attention to those that much. I just like to see what it's doing exactly when I'm looking at it. And this is measuring voltage of the battery, and then also how much current I've got coming off the charge controller into the battery. And now see, I'm floating at a good voltage at about 27 right now, and that's what the charge controller is supposed to do. I've got 0 amps going inside there in the current because it's already at the float voltage. Now say if I set the float voltage knob higher, and like I raised up float voltage, then it's going to show current start increasing on that, and it's going to start putting more current in there and then charge the battery to the higher voltage. Okay, voltage on the negative side of the charge controller comes in right here. It comes in through the shunt. This is a 100 amp shunt, and like, it's kind of a weird thing. A shunt is sort of like a resistor, and now the meter, you know, it just measures a voltage drop across here. The voltage drop is really small. It's 75 millivolts if you're flowing 100 amps through it. And so it's like nothing lost there. So it comes in negative off the charge controller. It comes all the way through here onto the negative side of the battery. Okay? And now, as I said, that these batteries are connected in series. So if you did them in parallel, it would be 6 volts with a lot of current capability, and instead of the 24 volts if they're in series. And see, I want to go 24 volts because as you do that, you know, I can use smaller wire size. It's like on the solar panels, I use the 10 AWG size. So anyways, what I do is that the positive side of that battery, I connect to the negative of the next battery. The positive of that battery, connect to the negative of the next, positive to negative. And now on the positive side right here, if you measured across these from here to here, it's going to be 20, it's actually that voltage right there is at 27 volts. So on the positive right here, I go through a breaker. I'm not sure if I'd recommend this breaker. It's supposed to be a 250 amp. I don't know if that could handle 250 amps. I mean, it's got small bolts on there. But anyways, I put that in there. I'm going to give you a parts list of all the parts I bought on this system of you know, the charge controller, the inverter, and wiring and all that. On these batteries, I paid $180 for them. The REs are the better way to go. It's about $30 extra. The RE stands for renewable energy. So if you spend $30 extra, it's going to last longer, and it's just worth getting that. On the positive output is going to come out this way, and I've got negative coming out here. They come up the wall, and they come up to my inverter. Okay, the inverter's right there again. Okay, I've got the positive and the negative 24 volts coming out the battery on those lines. They connect onto the inverter right here. The inverter, just in case if somebody's not familiar with it, it converts DC to the AC. They've got some which are the modified AC signal sine wave, and the modified, it's really not good. I've heard it's really not a good way to go. You know, if you want to keep everything cheap, go ahead and do it. But if you're going to run motors off it, see, I got this one here because I got a well pump. I want to be able, if there's an emergency, if we lose power, I want to be able to go fully off the grid, and that's what this system is going to do. This thing, it's not a modified sine wave, it's a pure sine wave. It's a Context SW. It's a 4,000 watt. I've seen a lot of Chinese ones on there. Do not buy one of those Chinese ones on there. I've seen videos on them. I've looked at the inside. I've read in the reviews. If you see the Chinese ones, it's very interesting how like most of them don't have a manufacturer's name even printed. And the reason it's not a name on there is because they want to keep on selling it without any reviews. As soon as it gets a bad review, all they do is change the name in the ad, but there's no name on the product. And I've just read reviews. People hook them up and they just catch on fire, and you know, it can't do what it's supposed to. On this one here is a 4,000 watt. My pump's about 1,000 watts, and they tell you it's best on the inverter if you get it about 3 times of whatever it is you want to power. And so this one here, it's really cool because it's got a split phase over here. And so it's got line 1, it's got neutral, and it's got line 2. And so if you measure line 1 to line 2 over there, see, I've got the black and the red on them. So if you put a voltmeter across those, it's going to measure about 240 volts when it's on. If you measure it line to neutral, it's going to be 120 volts. And so on my well pump, it's going to take 240, and so it uses both those on the outside, but my lights in the house are using 120, and so it would go line onto neutral. So I got the power coming in 24 volts right here. I've got the AC power coming out right here. It's up to 4,000 watts. I mean, I've powered everything in the whole house off of these 4 batteries, and like it runs it perfect. And you know, it's a real easy hookup on this thing too. You know, as soon as you get the battery hooked up to it, it's gonna flash. It's got the enable. All I do is press enable and the thing turns on and just runs perfect. Of course, it's got all kinds of special features if you want to get hookups out here, and it's got the switch box and controller information and programming. All I wanted is just the basic. As you see, it's really cool. It tells you if there's a fault. It's got a clear reset. It's also another thing about the China ones. You know, it didn't have a reset on there. I mean, if it can't power it, they just blow up. All this thing does is just shuts off. If it's not going to work, if it's too much power, it's drawing too much power, all it does is just a clear fault. So I've got AC coming out right there. It goes into my switch box right here. Here's where the 24 volt DC power comes into my closet. From my closet, it comes out to this charge controller. Okay? The purpose of this, I bought this already. It's a 20 amp charge controller, 12 volts, 24 volt option. It only cost $9. I was going to use this, but then I found out, you know, it's not worth skimping out on the charge controller. It's not going to float the battery right. It's not going to put the bulk charge on there correctly, and so it's just not very efficient. But it's the thing I did, since I already had it and I didn't want to send it back, I'm using the load control option on this, and its thing that means is that the battery voltage is coming in of 24 volts, and mine's 27 because that's how I'm floating it. But it comes in at that, and then it puts it out to the load at the 24 volts. But if the 24 volts, if it goes below 21.7 volts, it shuts the load off. So this one here is 24 volts. I've got this going out to my refrigerator if I need it. And now also I've got it going to a regulator right here. The regulator is a step-down regulator. It's got 24 volts in, positive and negative, and then it's got a 12 volt, 20 amps, positive and negative. Now this one here I use for powering LED lights, and so these lights are really cheap. It only uses 2 watts of power, and you know, as you can see, I mean, it's really bright. And then the refrigerator, don't go with a thermal electric fridge. That's what I was thinking of doing. The thermal electric, you have to have power to them all the time. This one uses about 55 watts, and it shuts off as soon as it gets cold. It shuts off, and this gets really cold. It'll get down to 0. These ones are the most efficient. You know, if you want to save power, these are the ones I researched them, and this is really recommended as the best one. It's the Weiner, and it's got a 24 volt signal on this side over here. It comes in, it just switches automatically, and it tells you the voltage and just set point up and down. Real easy to use. They'll use AC or also DC, and the DC, if you put 12 volts on it, it just recognizes it and uses it. If you put 24 volts, it recognizes that and it tells you input voltage right there, and just keeps it at that. And so the Weiner refrigerator freezer has also got the you know, it's got a factory setting on there where it's got the cutout voltage. So this is really efficient. It's made for off-grid, low power, and so its thing it means on the cutoff is that if the voltage input gets too low, it just shuts off instead of killing your battery. And that there also, I forgot to mention about my load controller inside the closet over here, is that you know, at the cutout at the 21.6 volts, if the battery goes to that voltage, it just turns everything off. It won't put any output out to the load. And the purpose of that is that the batteries are you know, really damaged if you bring them down to a really low voltage like that. That's what kills a battery, is not keeping a charge on them, especially if they go down to 0 voltage. You know, it's like $800 lost.
Let the king of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the king